What's up, everybody? Oh, 1 second. Alrighty then. What's up, everybody? This fine evening. Was it Wednesday? No, it's Tuesday. I know it's Tuesday because I was going to go to a town hall meeting, and they only do them on the first Tuesday of the month. But I was working today and got all my work done. Cleaned up my area a little bit. And the dogs are all freaking out because it's raining pretty hard in North Carolina where I live. But I was doing a couple of things, or looking through a couple of things, and trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my next video, those kind of things. So, and some of the comments that have been going on through well, no, it wasn't actually in well, it was my comments, or at least comments in my video. But I visited my mother in Anderson, Indiana, and we had to do some business at the SSA. And actually, I've never had gone to the SSA, maybe other than to just get a Social Security card for myself. But in this case, I was doing business for and with my mom. So, and when you go in there, we went there really early. My mom was worried about getting there, and there's going to be a big line, etc. The first day we went, of course, the first thing they tell you is no guns and no recording. And they have signs that say no recording. And I remember thinking, I'm not sure if that's actually true. And I know I've seen other videos where people go in the Social Security Administration office or building and they try to record. I feel like I have a specific reason for recording. I'm not a person that wants to go and get anybody's information, but their assertion was that you can't record. So I decided to go back on a second day and record, basically challenge their assertion that you cannot record in the Social Security Administration office. So if you watch the video, I think the link is in the comments, or at least in the description. You'll find that initially I asserted that there is the CFR states that you can record for news purposes, and they tell you where you can. They tell you where you can record for non-commercial purposes and for commercial purposes. And of course, I was told that I needed to speak with the manager and I couldn't record in the building. And then from there were 2 videos. I have probably 2 more videos coming out from that particular first kind of interaction with going to the Anderson Police Department because the police were called, that whole thing. But I've been doing a couple of things, and it involves looking at one, the CFR, and the policy that they gave me, or at least that they referred to, that said that describes why and what they do with regards to recording, why they prohibit recording in the SSA. Now, I know a lot of people say, public forum, traditional public forum, non-public forum. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around those things, and so I'm not saying I even know exactly what's going on with regards to all this stuff, but it's the beginning of my journey into figuring out whether or not I can record in that particular location and maybe in the location that I live. So I wanted to start with the CFR. Hopefully you all can see what I have, and I'm just going to read it. And it is, let me see if I can go over here. I don't know how updated it was. I don't even remember what the date was, the expiration date, or the publication date for the one that was in that particular building. This one that I found, a PDF I found online, and it is Rules and Regulations Governing Conduct on Federal Property. And as it relates to photographs for news, advertising, or commercial purposes, it is 41 CFR 102-74.420. And it says, except where security regulations, rules, orders, or directives apply, or federal court order or rule prohibits it, persons entering in or on federal property may take photographs of A, space occupied by a tenant agency for non-commercial purposes only, for non-commercial purposes only with the permission of the occupying agency concerned. B, space occupied by a tenant agency for commercial purposes only with permission of an authorized official of the occupying agency concerned. And C, building, entrances, lobbies, foyers, corridors, or auditoriums for news purposes. Now, I do remember showing that to the security guard. It's a triple canopy security. He was an armed guard. He told me that I couldn't record. I insisted that I thought that it said that I could, and then I wanted to speak with the manager. He went inside and said he'd get me a manager. I can't remember exactly how many minutes it was, but it was long enough that I decided that I was going to go in, and I was visibly recording, and he got all heated. You can't record in here. Step outside, sir. Outside, I'll get management, etc., etc. So management came, brought me into a back room, and the manager then brought out, or he had in his hands, a policy, and he said this is what they were referring to. He presented me with a piece of paper that had this particular policy on it. And I have the link to both this and this. It's Program Operations Manual Systems, or POMS. The effective date is 12/03/210 to present. And it says GN 03360.010, taping interviews in field offices policy. And it says, a person may audio record his or her telephone or in-person contact or interview with SSA personnel. Then it has a link to, I guess, an internal policy as well. And then it says, employees should not, however, suggest or encourage the use of recording devices. An audio recording played by a person or his or her representative does not constitute a disclosure by SSA. Therefore, a signed release of any kind is not required. Photography and video recording are prohibited in federal space without the permission of the tenant agency. And it refers to 41 U.S.C. 102-74420.420. Refer questions to the Center for Security and Integrity in your region. Now, I have actually tried to find someone to speak with in whatever this is. I still have yet to be able to find it. I also have FOIA requests regarding some information at that particular office, people I talk to, some policy questions that I have. I'll either go over that and try to figure out what it is actually that I want to find out with regards to the SSA. But so he showed me that, and to me, I said, this is referring to interviews with SSA personnel or in-person contact. And I actually showed him what they refer to in this particular policy, 41 U.S.C. 102-74.420. I'm going to memorize that eventually. And he visibly looks at the CFR, which I showed him, this right here. And he pauses and he looks at what it says. And then he doubles down on this policy and basically says that I can't record. Now, I asked if I could continue to record. You know, he described that I could audio record my interview while I'm talking to the SSA personnel, but I can't video record. And he insisted that that was the case. I said, is there anybody we can talk to that will give us further clarification? He said that he would, but he couldn't do it on that particular day. This was about 3 months ago. But they said during the interaction that they were going to call the cops. Now, I ended up calling the cops myself, and I had some dialogue with him, which you can see in the video as well. But I kind of have a few questions with regards to this policy. First of all, I was interested in what this says, and I'm going to show it to you. We'll probably read all of it. But it says photography and video recording are prohibited in federal space without the permission of the same agency. But this policy doesn't actually say that. The only time it requires permission are in two instances, and that's for non-commercial purposes, so space occupied by a tenant agency for non-commercial purposes, only with the permission of the occupying agency concerned. And then for commercial purposes, only with written permission of an authorized official of the occupying agency. And C, building entrances, lobbies, foyers, corridors, or auditoriums for news purposes. Now, arguably, people could say, you know, what is news purposes? Personally, I think it's interesting to try to figure out why it is that they would prohibit photography in general. But I also can understand that there's sensitive information, etc. But in this particular building, there are clear spaces outlined, and there's clear spaces where business is conducted. And I'm certain that a person doing an interview for any purposes in this particular SSA building is not going to do it in the area that I was trying to record in. So that's one thing. Now, a lot of people will say that it says, except where security regulations, rules, orders, or directives apply. And arguably, the sign that they had posted did have images of cell phone. It may have had a camera type thing, and it said that in fact, I'm going to see if I can pull it up because I took a picture of it, I think. So let's see if I have an image of kind of what this particular image looked like. Let me see if I can find it. I think it's down there. So I'm going to pull it over here and then see if I can show it to you guys. So and it's not completely clear, but this is the image that was there. Photography and videography prohibited. That's one statement. Shows the images. Warning, photography and videography prohibited. Then it says federal law and SSA policy prohibits taking pictures or video in SSA buildings. And then it lists the CFR, and then it says something else. I think I have it, but without the express permission of the agency involved. So this is the sign that was up. Now, I don't know if there is within the SSA organization official signs. Is this considered an official sign? Sure, it's telling you that photography is prohibited. It tells you that federal law and SSA policy prohibits taking pictures without the express permission of the agency. So I ask a few questions. I'm a question asking person. And if the federal law, which is the CFR, lists when you can take pictures and where, and when you need permission, except when security regulations, rules, or orders. So I'm assuming that directives apply in this particular case. And then they show me the policy that says whatever it says. So what are you saying? You're telling me that we cannot in this particular space video record our interviews. So when we're talking to an SSA personnel, they're saying that we cannot record that. But they also say that photography and video recording are prohibited in federal space without the permission of the tenant agency. But that CFR doesn't necessarily say that. It tells you when and where and what you need to do in order to take photography. So that was the beginning of my problem when it came to that particular policy that they have inside. And like I said, I'm certain that interviews are not being conducted in the spaces where I was, which happened to be a lobby, where I entered and was told that I can't record. They don't hold interviews there. They, you go in, you put your information in, and by the way, if you don't have your information, or like if you don't know the social security number, for example, there is like a stock number that can be given to you, and they'll take you into a window. But those windows that you go to are completely separate from the lobby that I was in. You go through an opening behind a glass partition, and there are probably A, B, C, 4 or 5 booths where behind that is another glass partition, and you address the SSA personnel. It's a separate area. It's not the lobby. Business is not conducted there. In fact, if you sat in the lobby and you had a number and you waited and 100 people were called and they called out a number and you never went to that window, you would not be able to conduct business in that particular place. Then there's another area straight ahead and off to the left where there's a security guard booth. Fine. And then around the corner is a hallway that has more booths. I know this because I actually went there and I asked for them to tell me what the status was of the FOIA request that I had submitted. So again, separate areas. What kind of security or sensitive information is going to be disclosed? None. Not in these areas. Not in the areas that I described. So I decided that I also wanted to go and check out what things are saying in here. So I'm going to mostly read this. And, I'm doing this for a couple of reasons. First of all, I've done a live, but I did it with my business. I run an eBay business. I don't remember if I had any stuff that I had on screen. So I'm kind of testing the waters, if you will. But I would find it interesting to find out what this says. So there is a link. If you go to the link that's in the description, you can get to here. You can also get to here. But this is, I think actually this refers to 1B 3A. It's in here somewhere, but I'm going to read what all of this says. So it talks about interviewing. Introduction on interviewing situations. Unless specifically noted, the policies and procedures described in the subchapter apply to both Title II and Title 16 interviewing situations. General interviewing guidelines. We complete almost all SSA business after an interview, either face-to-face or by telephone. Field office, or FO, and teleservice center employees represent the federal government. An employee's actions can determine an individual's image of the federal government. Employees should make each individual feel welcome and treat him or her with dignity and respect. Interviewers should make every effort to alleviate an individual's fear or anxiety about dealing with the government. An employee's expertise and manner of interviewing affects the outcome of the issue addressed. Interviewing conditions. We conduct interviews over the telephone or in or out of an FO. Note, for special procedures in supplemental security income, SSI interviews, including when to conduct a face-to-face interviews. For special procedures in supplemental security income, SSI interviews, including when to conduct a face-to-face interview, see this right here. And for situations requiring face-to-face interviews, see that right there, GN 00203.003B. You may conduct interviews before or while completing an application, during claim development, or post post-adjunctively, adjucatively, sorry, post-adjucatively, after we process the claim. Provide privacy to promote a free exchange of information and to preserve confidentiality. We may adjudicate a claim without an interview, for example, if it is received by mail or solicited from a third party. Interviewing tips. The interviewer should be objective, gather accurate, relevant information, review office records, for example, SSID, AACT, Numident, etc., use prescribed forms and designate blocks, and review each form before the claimant signs it. Policy for interviewing. Goals of pre-interviewing. The goal of pre-interviewing are to determine the reason for the visit, permit an exchange of information, especially when the reason for the visit is not clear, identify specific Social Security Administration issues or problems, determine if there is a need for non-SSA services, and make appropriate referrals, see GN 00903.100. Aim for complete information at initial contact to avoid a subsequent interview. If this is not possible, obtain enough information to begin development. Note, be alert to distinguish intent to file a claim from a vague or general inquiry. Resolve any uncertainty by taking a claim. Providing information to an applicant. The following are do's and don'ts when providing information to an applicant. Do handle misunderstandings, criticism, prejudices, and other controversies professionally and with correct information. Discuss the requirements for entitlement in relation to the particular benefit involved. For the definition of disability, see DI 00115.015. Tentatively determine whether the applicant meets the requirements for entitlement or eligibility. When appropriate, inform the applicant that a receipt of state workers' compensation or Veterans Administration disability benefits does not equate to a finding of disability by SSA law. These are the do's. Provide an estimate of when the claimant may expect action. Note, an estimate of processing time is required on the application receipt. If there is a potential loss of benefits due to delayed filing, emphasize the importance of filing. Place the responsibility for filing or not filing an application on the applicant. For general application taking policies, see GN 00201.005. For auxiliary and survivors claims, let the applicant know that the SSN of the number holder is for our program use only, and that the claimant must use their own Social Security numbers for earning and tax purposes. And these are the don'ts. Don't elaborate on the social theory or rationale behind the law unless the applicant indicates a need for this information. Reveal confidential medical information or other restricted information. Again, these are the don'ts. Inform an applicant of his or her loss of benefits resulting from his or her failure to file earlier. Avoid remarks like it's too bad or didn't apply sooner. Avoid remarks like it's too bad you didn't apply sooner. This only causes dissatisfaction. Give general legal advice on course of action to qualify for benefits such as adopting a child, changing a business agreement, etc. And these still are don'ts. Don't become involved in debates, advocate changes in the law, or inject personal opinions into discussions with applicants. And finally, don't predict the final disability decision even when the Disability Determination Service, or DDS, makes a favorable decision for disability claims processing. See DI 10005.000. Right to record interviews. The applicant may audio record telephone or in-person contacts with SSA personnel. Refer any questions to your Regional Center for Security and Integrity. Again, I tried to find this place and speak with someone. I've yet to find it, but I'm going to keep digging. Employees should not suggest or encourage the use of recording devices. Conduct recorded contacts in the same manner as a non-recorded interview. SSA does not consider a recorded contact played by the applicant or his or her representative as disclosure. Therefore, no precautions such as a signed release are necessary. Confidentiality. Observe closely the rules on disclosure as explained in GN 03301.004 and basic interviewing guidelines in these sections, as applicants are obligated to provide a great deal of private information. Exercise special care in SSA cases due to the sensitive nature of issues involving needy people. In making third-party contacts, we require the consent of the applicant or representative. If the applicant does not give consent, advise the applicant of the effect on the claim. So, again, all of that information that I just read is what the Social Security Administration employees, management, etc., probably even the security guards, are the directives for how they should conduct their interviews in person, that they're allowed to audio record, and the types of things that they should do and say. That's the way I look at the combination. Let me do this. That's the way that I view the combination of the directive that is in the form of a posted image on the front of the particular building that I went into, that again arguably is official or not official. So the two together, the CFR and the SSA policy, which is what it says. So this is not telling me that photography and videography are prohibited in federal space, or at least in the SSA building, because this in and of itself is not a true statement. So, brought up questions, and honestly, I think that there are legitimate reasons why people can and should be able to record in that particular space. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know what the law is specifically, what the nuances of it are, but I'm going to dig a little further. And really when it comes down to it, is that I've seen at least 2, 3, maybe 4 different videos. I don't know who the person that was doing it, where at the end of the day, they were allowed to record in that space at the SSA building. So is that a state by state thing, or is that a how you feel that particular day, how the manager feels that day, how their manager tells them that they should treat people wanting to record in the spaces that they say that they can, and for news purposes. And again, I'm reading that people that, first of all, I think the way that it's put is that news people do not have any special privileges more than what the normal person would have access to, as far as information and their ability to record officials in the course of their duties. Yeah. So I'm a believer that we all have the ability to gather news, and we have the ability in certain spaces, even in non-public forums, for example, that when there are areas that we can record and that we should be able to record so that we can access information on how our government is run, then we can do that. Now, there is a fine line, and people have different ways of doing things. I like to think that when I was there, I treated people with respect. I wasn't loud. I wasn't trying to make a scene. But I was fairly adamant about the fact that I think that the CFR tells you that I could do what I was trying to do versus what they were saying. And he had the need to get further clarification on whether or not a person is able to record in that space or not. So now, that's the direction that's the position that I'm in. That's the direction I'm going with this information that I have in front of me. and it causes me to want to get down to the nitty gritty, the bottom of things. So, and I'm going to be able to look back at this and see, how everything played out. I mean, for all I know, I'm not able to even hear you all, the world, is not able to hear what I just went through. And this is all for naught. But I was listening to a case, and the reason why I was listening to this particular case was because it was the Seventh Circuit, and it involved the same circuit that Indiana is in, the Seventh Circuit. I believe it was ACLU against Alvarez, and I just started listening to it. And I think I came across a video where somebody read basically the whole entire case, or at least the brief of that case. And I'm not even sure if it's called a brief or if it's I don't think it was a transcript because it didn't say everything that was. There was a recording of it, of the oral arguments, and then they read the brief of the case. And I remember thinking in my mind that it would be cool if there was other cases or even going over some policies, not from the perspective of me as a layperson, although I think it actually is prudent, or should be prudent, that laws and policies and those kind of things, when you listen to it or read it, it should make sense and it shouldn't be so obscure. And honestly, when it comes down to what the CFR says and what this policy says and how they are actually applied, I think it can be kind of confusing. And I do have a personal, legitimate reason for wanting to capture the most accurate information as it pertains to the business that I need to help my mother accomplish. And if I'm in the SSA building doing that, I'm clearly not trying to, steal anybody's information. And to be perfectly honest, I believe that in the spaces that I saw on that particular day, that there was no extraordinary measures that need to be taken to protect the information that would be presented or discussed or shown in the spaces where they conducted that business. And by the way, if I was in fact audio recording, which it says I can do, I'm nearly equally possibly capable of capturing the same type of information because the booths aren't that far separated, far removed from each other. They have natural processes and procedures that protect that information. So the mere fact of recording is not going to do anybody any harm. And even still, in the instances where you obtained permission for either commercial, so written for commercial, I guess verbal permission, prior permission if it was non-commercial, and then apparently in certain spaces, for news purposes, I guess what they are trying to say is that you can't do it at all. But that is not what the CFR says. And even this particular policy, although it says photography and video recording are prohibited in federal space without the permission of the tenant agency, it not being a true statement doesn't mean that they have designated. I think what they do is they say that you can't record, and they probably would prefer that you not record, video record. But the reason why they're listing why they have the posters that say photography is prohibited, because they've decided that they don't want you to record the interview. And the reasons why they don't want you to record has nothing to do with security or protecting another person's information. It's because they don't want to be liable for things that their employees do when they're conducting an interview. To me, that's the way it reads. It's and interviews. I mean, it could be even, you know, interviews to the public as far as like a news purpose or whatever. They probably have a public information officer that handles interviews. At least most of the companies that I've worked for in my lifetime, they tell us if the news happens to come to to our building, you are not authorized to speak on behalf of the government. I mean, or of the company. So employees likewise aren't necessarily they caution them the things that they're going to say, the information that they give, and so they are just prohibiting it in certain spaces in that building, so they don't have to worry about that. And I think that the the disconnect at the end of the day is that some places will say, okay, fine, you can record, but you can only go here. You can't do such and such and all these kind of different things that they'll direct you to do or not do. And I just think that it's needs to be clarified. And since I have a desire to conduct business and record so that I have accurate information that can be relayed to myself, between my sister and I and my mom, or for whatever reasons, my own personal reasons, or I want to know, why is it that you don't want anybody recording in the spaces that you say that you can record in? So that's where I'm at. For the whatever number it is for the 2 videos that I've put out on this particular subject, I do appreciate the subscriptions. It's not like I have a whole lot of them, but it's an issue that matters to me. And so I appreciate the fact that you engaged any of them in the comment section, answered any questions, all those kind of things. And I don't see myself running to, you know, just some random governmental office and you know, harassing employees. In fact, when I was asked to leave, he told me to step outside and wait for the manager. I did that. And when I spoke with the officers and they said that their supervisor said that no, you can't record because it's clearly posted, et cetera, I said, well, since you didn't bring that person, that supervisor, on the scene, I will go down to downtown and I will speak with the supervisor myself. I did have dialogue with him. There's going to be a video that's going to come out that shows our engagement. But I had a problem with that within that particular interaction because there is one officer that I say repeatedly, but it was maybe 3 times, that muted the recording because they were having a conversation in privacy. And I mean, that's a whole nother can of worms, but for the most part, I feel like officers should endeavor to preserve the record as much as they possibly can. I mean, we see far too often where the outcome of an investigation, when video is available, is so different than what you probably the normal reasonable person would think it would be, because it doesn't tell the whole entire story, et cetera, et cetera. Fine. I mean, I don't always agree with some of the things that we see, but at the end of the day, if there is so much inconsistency, or there can be so much inconsistency or doubt with the story, then why take any of the record out? To me, that's simple. So I'm gonna check out this video. I'm sure that I didn't even know how to take out all the stuff if I drank some of this, and I didn't mean to offend anybody by doing or not. It's not like a whole bunch of people watched anyway, but I'm sure there'll be another reason why I do a video about this subject or any other subjects, because I have to do things differently now because I'm doing it for somebody else. And for me personally, writing it down necessarily, or even taking a copy and then faxing it to somewhere while I'm there, especially when I'm away from where I actually live, is an easy way. And I'm in danger, or I would be in danger, if what they're saying or what the agency is saying or that particular manager is saying is that you can't take a picture of that document while you're in this particular building, even in that space. And by the way, what if I chose to have my interview in the lobby? You would, they would probably say, this particular person, this particular manager would say, you can audio record, but you can't video record in this entire building. I don't think it's a carte blanche or, you know, blanket statement for the whole entire building. I think it was designed for a different reason, and I think that there should be clarity in what the policy is, what they abide by, and what the law says. And I mean, across the board, maybe amongst the entire state, they might be slightly different in the state, but that's where I'm at. So, all right, everybody, thank you very much for checking me out. Check out part 1, check out part 2. There will be another part coming out. Like and subscribe if you would like. We would love it. Give me another reason to make a video about something that matters. FAQ The Madness is the name of my channel. My name is Craig. Everybody have a good evening, good night, whatever is going on in your life. Take care. Bye.